Hey Reluctant Preppers, this is showing you just how easy it is to purchase silver without paying any premium over spot price. You just go to sdbullion.com/rp, scroll down and enter the special code to get silver without any premium, and they'll mail it to your mailbox, discreetly packaged. Inside you'll find a beautiful 10-ounce bar of fine silver, and you are able to purchase that and have it and add it to your stack and your collection without paying any premium, and you're supporting Reluctant Preppers along the way. Thanks.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We're here again with our off-grid doctor, Dr. J. Nielsen MD. He runs a survival compound in Haiti. It's also a Christian mission, and he's also an expert on why the medical system may be failing you and your family in your attempts to preserve your health and your wellness. And there's many aspects to that, and Dr. Nielsen is here with us again on Reluctant Preppers. Dr. Nielsen, thank you for joining us.
It's nice to be here.
You broached a fleet of topics with us in our first talk with you last time about how the system is broken in all of the financial aspects that lead to conflicts of interest and maltreatment of people not getting the options that they need to really maintain their health. One of the things that was key and critical to everyone who's listening to this, because some topics of specific medical conditions people may feel apply to them or not, but the topic of food applies to everyone, and how our food affects our health, both individually and in our family and as a society, is something we'd like you to address with us tonight. And what's gone wrong, what's the trend with our food supply, and how it's affecting our health. So if you could start out, I know last time you touched on GMOs, and in the past you and I have spoken about things like soy or corn syrup or things like that, but we'd like you to really kind of give us a doctor's view with a caring eye for the well-being of families. What do we need to know that we're not knowing about the food supply and how it's affecting our health?
I really look at most of these problems as food toxicities. And my good friend Jack and I, who've done years of lectures together, have done entire lectures on this for 2 hours. And you really have to break it down into subsections. But the first thing that you have to do is I always tell people that if you aren't sure where you stand with your health, you want to go back to the Paleolithic model. Every morning you wake up and your body has done no genetic drift in a few thousand years and still wishes that you'd eat like you did several thousand years ago. And we've had no genetic opportunity to learn to assimilate all of these toxins. We have an example of that in gluten, because we had 7,000 years to assimilate gluten, got better at it, and the gluten changed a decade ago. Okay? But as a general rule, the diet that we're really meant to eat is both seasonal, and it is all of which we're never going to accomplish because our food supply is not seasonal. But it used to be very seasonal, and it is also driven by where we came from genetically. Yeah. And so we have that Paleolithic man who really grew up within view of an ice shelf, okay, and was living in Northern Europe, in both your and my example, and that is a completely different dietary need than the American Indian or blacks or the Mediterranean people. They're all different dietary things.
Pacific Islander.
Yeah, and Pacific Islanders, and all of those things are led to eating for your blood type, which is really about eating for your original, where you came from. Okay. And the blood types all follow that. And so if we stick with the Paleolithic man, we were hibernators, okay? We were a group of people who basically went into our cave, and I will return at the end of this story to that cave. I will close in 1 year. And we came out of our cave in the spring, and we were very lean. We were very hungry, like any hibernating animal. We were irritable, and what was there to eat? Nothing except other animals who'd just come out of hibernation. Oh, nothing was coming out of the ground. Come on. I can see an ice shelf up there 5 miles away. Nothing was growing. It was cold, okay? And we were down trying to catch salmon out of the river like a bear, and we were trying to run down rabbits, etc. And all of that meat was very lean. As this season went on, those animals fattened up. We fattened up. We started to see greens, vegetables, lettuce, kind of plants, but they weren't lettuce. And then as we got further into the season, we saw green fruits. We saw green vegetables. We couldn't take a chance on letting another animal get them, so we ate them green. They didn't contain any significant carbohydrates. They were full of phytos and phytonutrients and all kinds of vitamins. And as this season went on, we started to see ripe fruit, nuts, honey, and seed heads. And we entered our fall season that had mostly carbohydrates. They weren't very fast. You could run down an apple, okay? So they became our preferred food, and they became the only food that Paleolithic man knew how to store. He wasn't making urns and squeezing oil and saving olive oil, but he was drying seeds, he was drying apples, and then he was taking all of that food into a cave, and that was the food that he ate while his metabolism slowed. So Mother Nature came along and gave us a hormone to help us hibernate, and that hormone is insulin. And insulin has the impact of slowing down your brain, making you stupid, lowering your temperature, and making you want to be sleepy, and storing all of your food as fat instead of muscle. Okay, we came full circle, one season. Now, what do we do today? We eat hibernation food year-round. It's 65% of our diet. And we all wonder why we have diabetes and we're fat and we're depressed. Because we're ingesting the great depressant, insulin, that makes you hurt and gives you heart disease and all of those cycles. And so you have to start from the very premise that the number one food that Americans eat is causing all of our disease.
Okay.
And that is Grain Brain, a wonderful book, and all of those books that have been done on carbohydrates, they're all true. So our primary dietary toxin is carbohydrates.
The reason I have to interject here, the reason I laugh is because my wife and I, having been treated for Lyme and then having developed Candida, having tried to cut out carbs, eventually I was losing weight so much, we ate lean meats and vegetables, and I could experience the experience that no matter how much lean meats and vegetables I put in myself, I wouldn't stop losing weight. So finally I thought, in desperation, I put carbs back in, and the brain went out the window. I called my wife from work every time and I said, I can't think straight. I can't think of anything. I just had this bready sandwich and my brain just went gone.
Well, let me correct that for you. If you look back at the photographs of the people in 1872 in Tombstone, okay, what were they eating? Nothing but beef. Nothing was being imported. The only thing that was out there was buffalo and beef, and that was mostly what they were eating. These guys were eating steaks, breakfast, lunch, and supper.
Yeah.
Okay? What'd they look like? They were thin.
Mm-hmm. They were.
They were really thin. Look back to any of the information you can pick up, not from Raphael and those fat people that are nudes in the paintings, but the people that we really know what they look like in the Middle Ages. What were they like? Thin. Really thin. We've been fat so long that we've decided fat is okay. And that's kind of different than the anorexia model of I'm going to not eat because I'm mentally ill in order to achieve that weight. But the plain fact is if you're eating plenty of food and it doesn't contain carbs, you're going to be thin.
Mm-hmm.
I weigh what I weighed in high school. Right now, today, my weight. And it's because I'm not eating carbs. If I eat carbs, I can just get myself right up 15, 20 pounds in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And so that's our first premise, is that if you don't want to spend a lot of money on healthcare because the healthcare industry is breaking down, your first responsibility is maybe you shouldn't eat the number one toxin in the American food supply. Now, that's if you're Northern European variant, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, all those waspy titles that we have. The minute that you start putting in any of that Slavic blood, you really start going over much more to the Mediterranean diet, which is that you're not allowing your fats to be anything more than boiled, but you do have more carbohydrates and you have a different diet. So one of the things you really have to do is your 23andMe, and then when it comes back and your 12 different things for 7%, I go, I don't know what to do.
So this is a genetic profile on yourself that you can send in a sample.
And Ancestry.com,
got you.
et cetera.
Okay.
And
All right.
I think that's useful information. It's easy for me. I'm 3/4 Danish and 1/4 Northern German, which is Danish again. So, I'm supposed to eat eel and bad apple products or something. I don't know, but I hate Danish food. It's all bad except for some of their pastries, which are all killing me.
That's right.
And so we need to start from there. Well, then the second thing that you have to look at is, since we're completely addicted to carbohydrates, what has that led us to? It has given us carbohydrate hunger. And the most portable carbohydrate is a Slurpee or your, carbonated beverage from Speedway, etc. And that led us to be the largest ingester of sugar in the world. Okay, which of course, what was that famous movie they made years ago about McDonald's?
Supersize Me?
Supersize Me. And the statistics on the fact that a large Coke in 1964 was 7 ounces and now it's 38. We have all of those things where we've lost our reference point of what is reasonable. And you watch all these people walking around with these, they've almost got wheels on them. These things are so big.
Oh, they're huge. 72 ounce big gulps in it.
Yeah, and, and these people have got a free thing at Speedway. I use mine, but I go get coffee.
Okay.
And they're walking in and refilling these things with the slush coming out and everything. And oh my gosh. Well, then the food industry said, oh, let's go over to high fructose corn syrup because it has rebounded. It's addicting. And so all these high fructose corn syrup products have just absolutely given everybody a hunger for more carbs with withdrawal. And then, of course, the next one after that is we invented NutraSweet, which, of course, was addicting and causes weight gain. And we moved on through all the cancer-causing ones that kind of taste like, terrible chemicals, although I thought NutraSweet tasted terrible. And now we've arrived at the new poison, Stevia. Incredible. This stuff is incredible. You know that if you take every artificial sweetener plus sugar and you give them all to a fruit fly, this fruit fly that's going to die in 32 days dies in 29 or 30, except for Stevia. And they die in 6 days. Stevia kills a fruit fly. I don't think anything kills a fruit fly, but Stevia kills a fruit fly in 6 days. And Cargill, or one of those companies, can't remember which one it is currently under litigation because they wanted to bring Stevia out as both a food and a natural organic pesticide because it kills insects. And somebody caught him at it and said, well, you can't have it both ways. Well, as it turns out, if you bribe enough people, of course, you can always have things both ways. And so the world is now, the entire alternative medicine world has gone, oh, I love Stevia. Half my nutritionists that I work with, I'll go, oh, Stevia, finally the blessing of a free sweet tooth. There is nothing free in life. This is causing, I tell you my own story. This stuff came out in a supplement that changed my life. It's called Arthroben. It's the first medical food from the FDA. It is a supplement. It is a peptide that makes your cartilage grow back on your joints. I've done Synvisc injections on my own knees for 25 years because I ruined them as a gymnast. I went on this supplement and in one day all my pain went away. And I developed urinary frequency and diarrhea. I thought, not a bad trade. So I stuck with it. And my urinary frequency got worse and worse, and my urinary stream got less and less. And one night I thought I was going to have to come to the office and cath myself. And I'm laying in bed going, what's gone wrong with my life? And I went, it's the Arthroben. And so I went off of it. And the next morning I could pee. And I thought, I probably ought to get a PSA. I'm 65 years old. My last PSA was 2. It was 39. And I went, oh no, I've given myself prostatic cancer. So I've scheduled with the urologist to go have a prostatic biopsy. And I'm laying in bed now worried about that. And I went, oh, wait a second. I went off the Stevia. Maybe I ought to recheck my PSA. And 12 days later, it was 8. And I went, oh, I've learned something. Stevia elevates PSA. And I'd read Bruce, what's his name's book, The Stevia Deception. Brilliant book. But it doesn't have any clinical information in it. So I went out and thought about all the patients in my practice who had elevating PSAs. And I called 10 of them up and I said, get off the stevia, wait 2 weeks and give me a PSA.
Okay.
I know I have 47 people in my series that have got their PSA back to normal by getting rid of stevia.
Yeah, because we've been hearing stevia's got all kinds of benefits for
Lyme,
yeah,
right? And it is a biofilm splitter.
Okay.
While you die from prostatic cancer and all those things. But, what the heck? But nobody's asking those questions. Everybody just is going, well, this stuff's just great. No, it isn't. It's terrible. And so, my whole point here was we ended up at stevia, but we started out at high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
And so we've got this entire carbohydrate addiction that we now think we can trick our bodies with all these artificial foods. All of them cause weight gain, even though they label them as diet. Now, there's never been a study ever done on an artificial sweetener that doesn't show that it causes weight gain.
What's your understanding of the mechanism there? Because it isn't intuitive.
They're more potent than insulin. They're insulinogenic and stimulating insulin receptors more potently than carbohydrates.
Okay, so people are looking at the calories only. They're saying, I'm cutting out 4 calories per gram.
Insulin stimulation.
But what your body is doing is the key.
Right.
Your body's the one that's being told store fat, store fat.
Right. Exactly. And so we're almost off of carbs and we can go someplace else. Okay. And so now we get to the end of the carbs and we go, and then I think the guy's name was Borland, got the Nobel Prize for figuring out rust-resistant wheat. 12 years ago, and stopped the huge epidemic of starvation in Africa. Okay, I think it was Bob Borland. Borland, I think I'm right about. I'm not sure about the first name.
All right.
And when he did that, he changed wheat forever. Wheat was not a food that was eaten by anyone on earth. And it was really developed as a crop in the Nile Valley because it created a food that the Egyptians could feed the Jews so they could build the pyramids and do all that stuff during everything we read about in the Bible with the Egyptians being under bondage 7,000 years ago. Okay? And I'll bet you that all of those Jews all had diarrhea because they had never met gluten before. And then we've had 7,000 years to incorporate gluten into our diet, and we've gotten better at it. And except for that small percentage of people who have true gluten enteropathy, all the rest of us are having gluten intolerance. This is not an allergy. It's an indigestibility. We lack the ability to be able to deal with this stuff. And like casein, it is a primary brain irritant. Gluten is food to the Lyme Borrelia. Gluten is a lot of weird things, but it really ruins the gut lining. And so we were all getting better at this for 7,000 years, and all of a sudden, when this rust-resistant wheat came out, everybody went, that's a really nice seed. Let's plant it worldwide. And all of our wheat is now Borland's wheat. 98% market saturation, and we're all back with the Jews 7,000 years ago, starting over again and trying to get used to gluten. On top of stevia, on top of carbohydrates, on top of big gulps.
And when you mentioned big gulps, I wanted to interject that it's one thing when a person goes in and pushes their 48-ounce big gulp cup in the refill spigot and fills it up with the corn syrup. But it's another thing when you think you're just eating ordinary food and you don't know it's laced with high fructose corn syrup and sugar and everything. My wife and I, trying to cut out sugar recently, have had to fastidiously ask everywhere that we're going to, we look on the labels. We've been asking people, can you please show us the label? Even at restaurants, I have to go get the thing out of the freezer and bring us the label. We look at it. Cisco, main brand of French fries that they bring to. So potatoes are on our okay list at this point in our internet.
Not French fries.
But French fries, they're coated with dextrose. Yeah. They've got sugar coated on the outside of the French fries.
McDonald's are coated with high fructose corn syrup because it makes them brown nicely. That's why McDonald's French fries are the best, is because the deep fat fryer is caramelizing the sugar. Brilliant. Yeah, it's, and so we've only managed to get into one small food group over there, Then you can go back and you go, okay, let's go to the number 2 carbohydrate on earth, corn. It's all GMO, okay? And you go back and watch King Corn, one of the greatest movies that was ever made, along with the McDonald's movie. Phenomenal movie, recommend everybody watch. It's 10 years old now. There are no farmers who raise corn who will eat corn. They know too much, okay? This food, we'll use the term loosely, this food has been so burbanked up with genetic modification and now GMO changes that the gut doesn't know what to do with it. And its increase in allergenicity and its ability to suck the gut into a mess is phenomenal. And it is now rapidly becoming one of the most common food allergens. And the problem is we have so many things, and of course number 3 is soy. We'll get to that one next. The problem is that all the vitamin C in the world is made from corn. You can't buy, unless you go get it's the Veg Plus and Fruit Plus, where they actually are extracting the nutrients from a live plant. All of your vitamin C is all made from corn. I can't take anything that has even 10 milligrams of vitamin C in it, or I get urinary frequency, because I'm so allergic to corn now. And nobody knows this. Nobody's talking about this. And corn is just absolutely toxic waste, and it contaminates everything. It's kind of like this is not a peanut-free environment, because there's peanuts made when you make this ice cream, so now we're making this kind of ice cream, so a little peanuts got in it. This is true of corn. Corn is virtually a dust in every grain manufacturing facility in the world. Okay. So therefore, it's in all your wheat. Okay? It's in all your rice. It's contaminating everything because it's a fine dust in its processing. Anybody who's ever worked in a grain mill can see the dust coming off of corn when it's processed.
Understood.
Okay? And so it's everywhere, and it's on everything. And so we've got that one. And, I grew up on Fritos, greatest food in the world. Okay, Twinkies and Fritos were my 2 favorite foods. Okay, eat neither of them now, but you don't want to know how many Fritos I've eaten.
Okay,
and I earned my corn allergy. Okay, by spending half of my life eating Fritos. Okay, and so we've got that one, and then we go. This brings us to the big 3 on grains, and then we get to soy. Okay, is soy a food? No. Read the whole soy story by Kayla Daniels. She's on the board of the Western Price Foundation and a brilliant writer. I've had thousands of my patients read the whole soy story and try and get to understand that soy is not a food. Soy was originally grown because, if we remember Dustin Hoffman, the graduate, and he says to us, plastics. Yeah. Okay? And what part of the soybean did he want? The oil, in order to make plastics. What was the value to that wet, stinking pulp that's left when you express the oil? Nothing. The soy industry, Central Soya, Cargill, etc., those people could not figure out what to do with that. And back in the 70s, when it all started, and we were going from Bakelite to plastic and moving our world over, okay, all of this byproduct was being taken into landfills. Well, very quickly, the landfills figured out this stuff will never break down in thousands of years. It made a very, very bad product. And the landfills finally told the soy people, make your own landfills. And they were in the middle of doing that when one day some guy decided maybe we just ought to burn it. So they were propaning it, throwing it in big cookers and throwing it in and incinerating it. And one day a piece of it popped out and landed in the guy's mouth. And if you toast this stuff, you might get idiots to eat it. And the rest is history. We ended up with the granola generation, the hippie generation, going, eat soy for everything. I wouldn't want to eat an animal. And so we started eating plastic. Well, the problem is it isn't just about plastic. Plastic is polystyrene, as in the word steroids. The foundational molecule of polymerized styrenes is estrogen. And so that, thanks for bringing it, okay, you're drinking this, is what I call estrogen water. How is this made? This is made by liquefying polystyrene in a layer, sucking it down into a mold the shape of this, and before it starts to drip down the sides, dropping cold water in, which of course boils out because it's hotter than boiling point. And then finally the boiling stops, they put the cap on it, it cools a little bit and does that shrink thing that we are used to seeing in cheap plastic. And what's the inside surface of this look like? If you look at this on an electron microscope, it looks like Velcro. It's not smooth, it's not like glass, it's not like steel, okay? And it's all, as we know, because we have all those little codes on plastic now about how much estrogen they put out, BPA, okay? Those are all steroids. And this is making your testosterone go down. And if I drank a sip of this, because my testosterone's barely hanging on, okay? If I took one sip of this tonight, I'd have night sweats. I don't even like to hold this stuff, okay? And so that brings us to soy. So when I was in medical school and first in practice in the 80s, normal testosterone for men was 1,200 to 2,600. And now it's 240 to 800.
Wow.
And why is that? We don't need to have the Russians and the Chinese invade us. We're just neutering ourselves. No wonder we've got sexual orientation issues in this country and got a whole bunch of kids who are going gulp, 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 gulp. And I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl. I go, honestly, I don't know if you're a boy or a girl either. And so we've got our third toxic food, estrogen water and soy pellets and all of those things, and they're playing with our hormones. And then that's making your thyroid tank, and then that's making your DHEA go down, which is why your testosterone is down, and that's making your adrenals volatile. And you go, really? What a mess. We're still in carbohydrates.
Yeah.
You know, it's an absolute disaster. And then you get into the vegan diet. And you go, really? What's the vegan diet founded on? Vegan Diet is founded a great book, Beyond Broccoli, written by 23 ex-vegans who were authors, and they all wrote a book because they all had to get off of it. Vegans feel really good for 19 to 23 months, and then they start to die. They just start falling apart. They get skin sores, their wounds won't heal. And the reason is that you look at the amino acids that are in plastics, and in soy and in soybeans and all that stuff, and even good vegetables, and you look at the amino acids that are in animal protein, they look the same. But the problem is they have a plasticity. They have a texture and a shaping thing that doesn't match. And eventually, and we've seen this, King Corn talks about the fact that carbon is usually carbon 8, but king corn carbon is carbon 6, and I'm not sure how that works. But slowly but surely, if you eat enough corn, all the carbon in your body becomes the wrong carbon. We do that with vegans, and they slowly turn their entire body into vegetable protein until the proteins won't work and they break down. And they start craving animal protein. And then they can just take a little cube of chicken meat and they go, oh, I feel better, okay? And they say, well, that's because I'm not getting enough B12, so I'll do my B12 shots.
Yeah.
It's not got anything to do with that. You're an animal, and you're trying to not be an omnivore. You're trying to be an herbivore, and herbivores have a different metabolism.
Okay.
And so we got that whole food toxicity that's coming from soy. We're still in carbohydrates.
But I wanted to interject
and these are
here.
our primary foods in our society.
A lot of people who are busy and they're on the go. They want to grab something. You can even go to the healthiest section of your health food store or the healthy section of your grocery store and grab these expensive meal replacement bars. And
except for Larabars, they're all soy.
Soy, yeah.
Only Larabars is not soy. That's what I carry in Haiti. They're fruit paste and nuts.
Yeah, date.
Yeah.
And nut.
Yeah, that's the only one that I found that I don't have a reaction to. And there's some kind of off-market things that the alternative people have come up with. I found a couple of them. One, not bad. Patient gave that to me. I don't like the taste of it, but it isn't poisonous anyway. We're still in carbohydrates. You know, and then, and this I'm not as much. You would really have to get Jack on audio and camera in order to do this, and that's we get to move into fats.
Okay.
And we go, oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, you have to understand that the worst thing in your diet in fats is trans fats. And trans fats aren't something that's in food. They're something that we make in food by heating it to above 300 degrees.
Okay.
Anytime you take any edible lipid and you heat it above 300 degrees, and for safety, you're really back down at 270, it's going to get a kink in it. And now it can no longer be metabolized by the body, so instead it just builds up in your arteries. And so cooked meat is out. The only way that you can prepare animal protein safely is in a crock pot.
I see. Low temperature, slow cook.
All the meat I eat, I slow cook.
I gotcha.
Everything, as long as there's steam under the lid, then by definition it's 212 degrees.
True.
And I'm making that meatloaf or those brats or whatever, and I'm pouring off the fat that is liquefied and making sure there's enough water in there and moving the brats around so the hot ones go where the cold ones were until it's all cooked over 8 to 14 hours, depending on what I'm making, always on low, never medium or high in a crock pot. And then when it's done, I'm putting it out on the counter till it gets almost room temperature, putting it in the refrigerator because I want to get it stiff. Now, tomorrow, I can process it. Now, I've got 3 things I can wrap it in. Aluminum foil, poisonous. Saran wrap, estrogen wrap.
Estrogen wrap,
Poisonous
okay.
wrap, right?
Yep.
Right there.
Yep. Okay.
Saran wrap, just thicker layer of saran wrap, right? So estrogen wrap, okay? Or wax paper, which is neutral. And so all my food gets wrapped in wax paper, closed with some masking tape, shoved into those orange newspaper bags so I don't get freezer burn, keep them tight together, okay? And when I thaw them, you can't throw them in the nuke machine and add a bunch of free radicals, okay? Another food toxicity, the microwave, okay? We can go back to that one. And you've got to, I have one of those plates that you put an ice cube on it and it melts so fast you can't believe it. Do you ever own one of those?
No.
Yeah, a guy used to sell me frozen fish, gave it to me because I bought a lot from him. And there are these plates that are bimetal and they transmit heat really quickly. And you put an ice cube on your countertop and an ice cube on this thing, it melts 4 times as fast.
Okay.
So if you put a steak or something on it, you can just watch it thaw.
Okay.
And that's a neat thing to own. But otherwise, you know, when I come to work in the morning and I've got 2 brats that I'm gonna, because I don't have a kitchen here, I have to nuke them. Well, I don't want to nuke them from 32 to edible. I want to nuke them from 72 to edible. So I set them out and let them thaw on my countertop until it's time for lunch. And so all that trans fat thing is all about that, you know. And so are there any shortcuts? Yeah, those broiler chickens that you buy at your grocery store in the estrogen tubs. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I don't think you're probably getting much estrogen out of that. Okay, but you know, all of those chickens, they're pretty slow cooked. And if you take skin off of them, you took off the fat that got trans fatted, and the protein's still well done. And so that's a shortcut. But otherwise, if you're going to eat protein, let's go to eggs. Fry them? Ooh, bad. Hard-boiled? Okay. I get tired of hard-boiled eggs. I pickle a lot of eggs because I get tired of hard-boiled eggs.
Now, on the topic of fats, we had our last 2 of our 5 children at home with lay midwives, and one was adamant, saying, "You've got to get all the margarine out of the house." She says, "You got to go to natural."
Terrible.
She says, "You got to go to." She says, "Butter's not too bad. Coconut oil's better. Virgin olive oil's okay."
Right,
But
you just ran out of. You're done.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of mine invented canola oil. Okay. And he did all the research on it and found out it just caused cancer in every animal he gave it to. And he had 10 years of his life wrapped up into it. And so he sold it to one of the big owners. We know the names of those companies. Mm-hmm. And thought, I'll let them, they can buy it from me, I'll get my money back, and then they'll find out it causes cancer, and was just horrified when it went on the market. And he just said, oh my gosh, he says, I figured this stuff out. And it's terrible. It's just a terrible food. And yet you watch health food people all the time go, oh no, it's good.
Yeah, well, my folks were totally they got educated up in the 70s about, we got to go polyunsaturated. So canola was a great thing, and corn oil was a great thing.
Corn oil was a great thing.
I mean, William Shatner promised that it was a great thing on the promise of margarine ads and that kind of thing.
Well, and how do you make margarine?
No idea.
You take corn oil or vegetable oil and you irradiate it, and it makes more bonds that make it thicker.
Is that the hydrogenated or whatever?
Yeah, hydrogenated. You just hydrogenate it by hitting it with radiation. We invented that in World War II, oleomargarine. That's it. It used to be called, it used to come white, and we added orange stuff to it to make it the right color. Butter is the right product. But now you can't throw it in a pan, heat it to 500 degrees.
Okay.
You really, frying and grilling and broiling and baking just don't work. I mean, you can bake, but you have to bake really slowly to the point where you might as well get back over to your crock pot because you're just going to have dry meat. Smoking works.
Yep.
Smoking's got the right temperatures. And so, what a mess. The proteins are just really a problem because people just simply don't want to take the time to do it. And as a result, I tell people all the time, breakfast isn't for breakfast anymore. You don't want to get up. One of the things Jack says to me all the time and says in all of his lectures, he says, the very first thing you want to do if you want to lose weight is get out of bed in the morning and don't make a cup of coffee, don't brush your teeth, don't take your meds. Get up and eat 4 ounces of gently prepared lean protein. It could be hard-boiled eggs. It could be whatever you had for supper the night before, okay? And nuke it up enough that it's room temperature that you can eat it. When you do that, you send a message to your body that today is a day I will have food. And it shifts its expectations to, I'm going to have enough food that I'm not going to get in a sparing mode. I'm not going to get in a protective mode. Oh my gosh, Jan went on, started doing that, and only change she made in her diet, and just absolutely lost weight so quick it was incredible and was amazed. We ought to talk about fasting. If you're going to talk about eating, let's talk about not eating, okay? Let's go back to the Paleolithic man. Did he eat 3 squares? Oh, he went long periods of time without food, and then when he found food, he gorged it because somebody else couldn't take away what he had in his stomach, but they could take away what he had in his hand.
Sure.
So he bolted his food. People say, slow down, eat your food.
That's the way our dogs. That's the way our dogs act. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the Paleolithic man. I just bolt my food. But Jan read this article in Women's Day, not a bad magazine for nutrition, does a pretty good job, one of the better ones, about the fact that if you're kind of stuck in your weight, try fasting alternate days. And I had 3 things that happened to me in about a year in my practice that made me realize that I wasn't paying enough attention to fasting. And Jan can now just take her weight down anytime she wants just by doing that, and she just boom, 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 the weight goes right down. Just eat your regular diet, alternate day, stick to 500 calories. And so there's a lot to be said for the fact that and I went back to Jack one time, he's my biochemist, and said, Jack, I don't know much about the biochemistry of fasting. And he said, you can really kind of think as food as like the tide. When you're eating, the tide's coming in. And when you're not eating, the tide's going out. And so your detoxification occurs when you aren't eating. And we eat all the time. And I never found anybody who'd substantiate that statement, but it made a lot of sense to me. And the whole concept, there has to be metabolic things that are the body designed for the fasting thing, because we're a cyclical organism, and yet we never allow ourselves to do one half of the cycle.
Right.
It's fascinating stuff. It's fascinating.
The only thing that brought to mind is a time that we went on a 7-day cruise, and there were 8 meals provided per day plus unlimited snacks in between.
Oh, brilliant.
And it was the strangest experience I had. It slowly crept up on me. First I felt like, oh, I'm in the land of plenty. Oh, isn't this special? Isn't this special? And by about day 4 or 5, I had this very unsettling feeling that I never was getting hungry. I was arriving at each meal satiated. I was arriving, and it was an unsettling, kind of like waking up from a bad dream or something. It was a feeling, something's not right here. This is just doesn't feel right. And it seems like it's connecting back, my personal experience connecting back with what you're saying, that there's a correctness to this natural rhythm of hunger or fasting, followed by
and
being
there's
satisfied.
another variable to this that we all experience, but we don't connect it, and that is if you got up tomorrow morning and said, boy, I got to clean the garage, and I got to go out and work the shipping facility, and I got to move that cord of wood, and then I got to do this, and you got one of those days where you just got busy, okay? You're not going to eat. Work is in a way fasting, because it's double fasting, because you're consuming, you're burning. And so if you eat a little bit, that's kind of physiologically logical, because you got to keep up with that. But your appetite goes away when you work hard. You don't have that desire to bolt food and sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream when you're working hard. That's from lassitude. And so, at putting work into the fasting formula is really interesting. I note this when I go to Haiti, because I'm always kind of continually working, and I have to make myself eat when I'm down there, because I always stay busy. Maybe not with heavy labor, but I've got one thing to do and then the next, because I got lots of projects lined up. And of course, I always come home and I've lost weight when I do that.
So, wrapping this up for folks who want to find out more, you've mentioned a half a dozen different books or movies or videos that people can check into. You've mentioned some real gotchas in terms of watching out for prevalence of some grains in our food supply that we may not even be aware of, like the corn contamination into other grains, that sort of thing. How it's not so much just counting the calories, it's not so much just what the thing is, whether it has calories in it, but what your body does with the signals that it receives.
Look at the low carbohydrate diet. It has no calorie restrictions or amounts of food.
True.
And people lose weight like crazy on it, because the only thing that's changing is their insulin is going down. And these people can eat voluminous amounts of food and lose weight on a low carb diet.
Yep.
It's not about calories. Calories is stupid. Calories is people on TV trying to get you to count something because they want you to pay them to do the counting for them. It's just, the low carbohydrate diet has been well documented to be the right diet for white people. Okay? The minute that you change major genomic structure, it's different. The Orientals have had rice forever. That is not acting like a carbohydrate to them. They don't tolerate soy as much as we're told that they do.
The tofu.
That's a really urban legend given to us by the people who wanted us to eat soy. That's in the whole soy story. But they really tolerate rice, okay? And of course, we killed entire populations with corn. Okay, corn's a terrible food. The Mayans and the Incans died because the only food they had was corn. I mean, you look at that whole area where those pyramids are at and all of that's happening, and that's a very interesting place in the world, because 50 feet down, there are clear waters of pool across thousands of square miles of land in a place that is arid. And so they always had the ability to dip water for crops, even in a dry season. So the one thing they could do was grow corn. And they had these huge populations of people there. And they slowly died. Remember, there are two forms of starvation, okay? There is the form that we see in Africa, where the child is nothing but sticks. He's gone, he's dissolving, and that's called marasmus. That is total caloric failure, okay? And then there's a second disease called kwashiorkor. And kwashiorkor is the disease I see in Haiti, is the big kid with the big belly and the big liver and the yellow hair, the orange hair that's falling out. And he's getting lots of carbohydrates, but no protein or fats.
Okay.
And that's a form of starvation too.
Okay.
And America is living in that world, except for we get lots of fat, so we get lots of protein, we get lots of everything.
So what are your top recommendations for people who want to try as best they can to opt out of the system? I guess you'd have me get a stainless steel refillable water bottle.
There's my water bottle.
There you go. Okay.
There's my water bottle.
All right. That's one idea.
Yeah.
Other couple ideas. Go pass on the big gulp.
Yeah. Well, you have to move over. My only drinks are water and tea and coffee. That's the only thing I drink, and some herb teas. Okay? you have to change your whole. The drink is water. That's why it flows in rivers across the earth. You never see a river that's got cola in it. Okay, it's real obvious. God gave us water. See it coming? And so you got to get over to water. When it comes to grains, you really have to find out if you're a person who should be eating grains. I shouldn't. Grains are not good for me. But if you're going to eat grains, don't make them soy, wheat, or corn. Go move off into oatmeal and barley and all those weird
super grains,
quinoa, super grains and all that stuff. Those things are all not gluten, okay, and so much better for you, and you don't have an allergy to them. We haven't gotten into allergies.
Oh,
Okay.
that's the next thing we're gonna have to talk about next time. But I know that on this topic of this is something we've stumbled on and been very grateful to. A couple things about getting off of the grains is if you like pasta, for example, you can get lentil pasta. You can get other types of
My favorite
chickpea
pasta.
Go ahead.
My favorite pasta is yellow squash.
Yeah, that's I was gonna say next.
If you put yellow squash and make lasagna or things like that, you close your eyes and you can't tell that it's a pasta.
Zucchini squash. Those are a great substitute.
They are. And all of that stuff's out there if you just start reading good cookbooks on people who care.
And my wife has just made a wonderful, we call it mega batch, which is a very large batch, which we stick in the freezer into these nice glass Corningware dishes of pumpkin waffles. So it's coconut flour and pumpkin flesh.
We give them to the grandkids.
And eggs. That's it, pretty much so.
And they make pancakes and they're wonderful.
Yeah. So, okay. Allergens next time.
Okay.
We ran out of time this time, but we'll talk about allergens next time.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Jay Nielsen, for talking with us about how we can take best care of our families and things that we're not getting told, and how we can stop eating what they're feeding us. So,
You got it.
thanks.
Good.